Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. Excited to be back today with another client interview for you guys. Today, I'm really excited to have Lewis on with us. And Lewis is one of our students that we've been working with since late 2023, actually, at the start of his freshman year. And he recently just finished going through his recruiting process for the summer 2026 internship and was able to secure an offer that he was very happy with. And so we wanted to get him to come on here and talk to you guys about his journey and kind of how he got to where he is today. And along the way, hopefully just share some insights that, you may find helpful for your own process. And hopefully you can incorporate that and, just get a better outcome for yourself as well. So with that said, Lewis, I want to thank you for, first of all, taking the time to be here with us today. And if you don't mind, just start things off for us by introducing yourself and telling our audience who you are as a person. And we'll dive into some questions for you.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate you having me here. Yeah, so like Sam said, I'm a sophomore at Stevens Institute of Technology. I'm here studying finance and quantitative finance. And then, just a little bit of color on how I got involved with the program. I interned at a loan brokerage in the summer going into my freshman year at college. And then I interned at a small private equity fund in the fall of my freshman year, starting at Stevens Tech. And then that's when I got introduced to Wall Street Mastermind, the program. There was some upperclassmen at my school that had built out a banking club modeled after Wall Street Mastermind that really geared me towards the program, explained the value of it. And so in that, fall around November, December of my freshman year, that's when I joined the program and was lucky enough to meet Sam and the team. And I've been working with them ever since. And they've been very helpful for me to help me land a role.
Gotcha. That's awesome, man. So I guess to start off, people are always wondering, like, what is the offer that you ended up getting?
Yeah, so I ended up accepting an offer at BNP Paribas, their leverage finance investment banking team in New York City for the summer of 2026. Super excited for it. More of a technical role. So a lot, gonna have to really lock in the next year and a half and really get myself prepped for it. But I think I've done a great job using the program, and the program's done a great job of guiding me to help me, compete for some more of those technical roles.
Yeah, for sure. And what was that feeling like when you first got the offer?
Yeah, I kind of didn't know what to do with myself, to be honest with you. Like, I thought I'd be all excited, but and I was, but like, I just, I'd been recruiting for so long and had given it so much of like my life that I was kind of like in shock. So it was a great feeling, a sigh of relief, the weight off your shoulders, and obviously gives you a year and a half to enjoy college a little bit before you start, and kind of gives you some time to prep for the desk. And so I think that's like one of the great things is, how early this is. There's pros and cons to that, but some of the pros are like it gives you a year and a half
Yeah,
as a college student to kind of enjoy yourself a little bit.
yeah. And you said that uh, you joined obviously at the very beginning of freshman year. Um, was this like the first thing you decided to do right away when you realized you wanted to do banking, or were you already doing other things prior to that to kind of prep on your own? It sounds like maybe you joined this investment banking club on campus, so maybe that's a part of it. But like, what had you already done on your own up to that point? I guess.
Yeah, so we had an investment banking club at campus called FIBA at Stevens Institute of Technology, and some guys in the Wall Street Mastermind program that were successful, Joe Ames and Nico and Sarah, founded it. And so they had been a part of your program years prior. And so they were kind of that hope for us as, a small non-target tech school of like, it's possible to break into investment banking if you take the necessary steps and really dedicate yourself to it. So really got involved with them right when I stepped on campus. And they told me a lot about the program, and then they also guided me on how to get started. So I started to down my path. I got to intern at Colville Partners, which is a small private equity
Yeah.
firm. And then I started to learn more about the program. I did the initial interview with your program, and I saw this as a great fit and some of the resources that the program provided. So I said, this is something now that I've gotten a little bit of experience, that this is something I really want to pursue. And so, once I knew I was really serious about, spending the next year and a half making this thing happen, I knew that the Wall Street Mastermind program was perfect for me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And yeah, Joe and Nico are both total studs, and more importantly, they're just great people, and really enjoyed working with them. And they continue to kind of give back in the program and help out the younger students as well. And so, that's
Yeah.
they always have there's certain students we work with that always have a special place in my heart, and I would say there there are two of those people right there. But so
Yeah.
you come in, you get this offer. Uh, who are the first people that you told about the offer?
Yeah, so I texted Joe, Nico, and there's another kid, Noah Purcellin, who's not involved with your program, but is an absolute stud.
Yeah,
And he's here at Stevens as well. And so I texted all those guys. It was just like thanking them, obviously. And I owe them everything because they helped me so much. And then I also told the coaches in the Slack channel because, the coaches at Mastermind and the guys here at Stevens were really the people that pulled for me and helped me so much and just have been, answering all my questions for the last year and a half. Saw the ups and downs, and so I kind of owe it to everyone that was really been in my corner. And I think having people in your corner throughout this year and a half is so important. And
mm,
I really don't think I convert if I don't have people in my corner that I can kind of bounce questions off of in like a weekly or a daily basis.
for sure. No, that's awesome, man. Um, so in terms of like joining Wall Street Mastermind, I mean, obviously, you kind of already mentioned like you joined because you met Joe and Nico, and obviously they both got really great results, and that kind of, I guess, gave you confidence that this is something that could be really beneficial. Um, did you just invest in this program on your own? Did you have to convince your parents to let you do it, or how did that work? I guess.
Yeah, so I sat down and talked with my parents before I got involved with the program, and I kind of explained to them the situation, explained to them the people on campus that had really guided me. And so the way I looked at it is, for to go to Stevens, I was able to get some
Mm,
scholarship money that was really important to us and really helped a ton. So I kind of almost looked at it as like, okay, you're not going to a target school, right? But you're getting to pay a lot less for your college
yeah.
education. And so to compensate for that, I saw the program as like a perfect way to like, okay, you're going to a non-target school, it's gonna be a lot harder to break in, but you're paying less for tuition, so you can kind of allocate a little bit to the program, and it kind of weighs out, you know, going to a target school and paying, sometimes some people have to pay crazy amounts of money to go there, and then you're competing with all those kids at the target school to get those target spots. Where it's like I kind of saw the other side of the coin. It
Yeah.
was like this would be a great investment coming from a non-target.
That's actually a really good way to think about it because you're right. Like, because we work with both, we work with a lot of target school students and non target school students and semi target school students. And so we kind of know like all across the spectrum, but like we have target school students that tell us they're paying 80, $90,000 a year to go to, Wharton or, Columbia or, one of those schools, which like obviously they have way more opportunity than you do coming from like say
Right.
Stevens, but over 4 years, that's, 350K plus, right? Which not everyone can, afford to pay that much for college. And so,
Right.
if you really break it down, like I always tell people, Wall Street Mastermind, you can almost think of it as like just this additional elective that you're taking, but it's not offered by your school. But it's the equivalent of paying for like an extra, couple credits in school, basically, if you want to really think about it. Like, if you take like you need 120 credits to graduate from college, right? And you think about how much money people are paying to go to college, like, yeah, you're taking one extra elective. And so if you could save a bunch of money, go to a non-target school, pay a fraction of what other people are paying, and then all you have to do is to level the playing field is take one extra elective. I know you will get the same type of results or very similar results to the people that are going to these target schools, and it's like, yeah, it's exactly what you said. Like it's when you think about it that way, it's kind of a steal, right? Um,
Exactly right. And just to add on to that point a little bit, I almost, if you're gonna look at the numbers, right? So you pay a lot less because you go to a non-target, and then you pay for an extra course of Mastermind, and then you land the job that pays you six figures or well over that. And then so you're actually, in my opinion, you're actually coming out with a better ROI
yeah,
than target school kids that pay the 90K a year at the best business schools and land a job with the same starting contract that you have. So like in my mind, it's like if you're willing to go to a non-target and put the work in, you actually get such a better ROI for you and your family. And that's kind of like that was like the biggest thing for me is being able to like come to my family with that and then follow through on it was like it just meant the world to my parents and I.
yeah. I mean, the key there is what you said, which is if you're willing to put the work in, right? Because we're
Right.
not sitting
Yep.
here and saying, "Oh yeah, just go to a non-target school and then sign up for a program like Wall Street Mastermind, and you can go dick around, and then like now you're gonna have the
Right.
same job as these target school kids." Like that's not how life works, right?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, if you
No.
are willing to put in the work, then all you need is some, proper guidance and resources that you wouldn't otherwise have at a non-target school, because the people at these target schools, quite frankly, have a lot more resources than you do, and they have more alumni that they can reach out to and try to get referrals from, right? And they have, like, obviously you joined the IB club that Joe and Nico and them started. They started that after learning what they learned from Wall Street Mastermind, but like at a lot of these target schools, they have very established IB feeder clubs that have been around for decades in many instances, right? And so that's kind of what you're up against and what you're competing with, right? So, but you're absolutely right. If you can get in, doing it this way, yeah, of course, the ROI is going to be way higher because you're getting paid the same as everyone else who's doing banking, but you are you didn't have to invest nearly as much into your education, financially speaking, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think that's really smart. And yeah, how did your parents feel after you told them you got the job?
Yeah, I think they, for a long time didn't really believe me. Not that they didn't believe me, but they knew what the job entailed. But like, oh yeah, great, you're working hard, so you're taking your job seriously. Like that's great. But then once they like started to see the contract and everything, like I had told them, like I was very straightforward with them with like what these jobs entail. But then I don't think they believed me until they saw like the numbers on the contract, and then they were like, "Holy crap! Like you're serious." So I think that was like they're old school Italian parents, so like they don't really believe anything until they see it. But they definitely were like in shock. Like I've never seen my parents so like happy before. I was like, guys, like I told you guys this was worth it. Like it took a long time. Obviously, some of the unpaid internships you have to do.
Yeah,
Like you have to put a lot of work in without seeing the results right
yeah,
away. But I think like once it really pays off, like seeing how it really changes your family, like this is different than like growing up playing a sport. And like yes, you can earn scholarships through that, but like this is like setting yourself up for a really good job at a college that most kids don't come out of college with. And so your parents that worked really hard to give you opportunities to get an education in America, like and being able to follow through with that, it's just like seeing their reaction was pretty special.
yeah, for sure. Sounds like I assume just from reading between the lines, but your parents don't come from the finance world or anywhere close to it, and they really didn't have any idea how the industry works or how much money you can make and any of that. Is that right?
Yeah, not at all. My mother worked in the fashion industry. My father was a entrepreneur his whole career. So both of them were, yeah, very non like traditional academic finance and political science route at all. And so it was, just a completely different world for them. They had no idea. They would just say, "Oh, like I know so and so they work in finance," but like they didn't know what that meant. You know what I mean? So it's like yeah, this is a completely different world for them, and so yeah, that was another. I'm kind of the first person. One of my cousins is in the world, but besides him, they're really unfamiliar with
Yeah,
high finance.
that's awesome, man. Well, it's great that they were, so supportive of you and willing to kind of let you invest into something that they don't necessarily fully understand. Because I feel like a lot of times, a lot of parents, because they don't understand something, they don't want to invest in it, right? Like it's just like fear of the unknown. And then sometimes, to be completely honest, that um, stops a lot of students from uh, being able to, have the opportunities that they could have had, because now they don't
Yeah,
have a way to get the guidance that they need, and it makes all the difference in the world, right? So
right.
speaking of that, then obviously you come in. It was again November of 23. It's now March of 25, and you just recently got your offer. So you've been going at it for almost a year and a half, um, just a
Yeah.
little under a year and a half. And so, can you kind of talk about some of the things that, like, what are some of the things that you've been spending your time on after joining the program? I mean, I'm sure you did a bunch of different things, and so we don't have to go through like every single little detail. But I would say, like, if you had to narrow it down to like two or three of the most impactful things that you did, what would you say those were?
Yeah, so I'd say the first thing, and I'm going to try to work with some of the underclassmen at Stevens that are kind of going through the cycle next year to take these steps because I think it's really the recipe for success that Mastermind kind of lays out. If you really get great at the three statements and free cash flow, and you can understand that to a T, everything else comes a lot easier. You can learn the discounted cash flow models, you can learn an LBO model, you can learn a debt waterfall model. Like you can kind of go extravagant afterwards. But I think if you can understand the core fundamentals really early on and have them, every line item, have them to a T, every link. I think that's where you start. And I think if you have that foundation, it actually starts to come a lot easier. Some of the more, advanced topics. So I'd say starting off at, early as you can freshman year, understand the basics to a T in terms of three statements, accounting, and valuation. It can really set the stage. Whereas like I haven't opened up a technical guide or studied technicals since I'd say early January or December, and November, December, January was all like just reviewing guides, more the more advanced concepts. But like there was no new real studying for the 3 months I was interviewing. Like it was all like why this bank, recent deals, etc. So like I kind of got to a point, and I don't think I got one technical question wrong in all my processes. So it's
Wow.
like if you can take that approach, you set yourself up where it's literally a numbers game. It's did this the guy interviewing you have a bad day that day and just wants to be a jerk to you or not? Like that's whether you get to the next round. It's not about your
Yeah.
competency. So I think that's the kind of the so I think first off is getting the technical fundamentals down really early on and getting to a point where you're not studying technicals when you're interviewing. Like that is way behind you.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two is networking, and obviously people hone in on networking a lot and talk about the importance of it. I think volume is great, and I tried to do volume, but I really tried to kind of lay that balance between volume and like real deep relationships that go way beyond the recruiting
Yeah.
process. And it's a hard line to balance because like if you could talk to 400 people, you're going to probably get in a lot more processes, but they might not care whether you get to the super day or not. They might not care whether you convert from super day to full time or not. Whereas if you talk to 200 people and 75 to 125 of those conversations, you actually have a rapport with them well beyond your 2026 summer analyst position, like closing up. I think that's another way to like kind of take it to another level, right?
Mm.
And so I think building some of those longer relationships where like there are guys I'm going to be getting coffees with in the next 4 or 5 months that I didn't end up interviewing at their firms. I didn't get an offer from their firms, but like they just like believed in me. They helped me out. They saw me convert, and they just want to stay in touch. So I think that's another thing. So it's like getting the core technicals down, and then on the networking front, building real relationships where you're getting coffees with guys. Obviously, it's easier. We're right near New York City, so if you're not near New York City, it might be tough. But like trying to build real like face to face or at least Zoom relationships with these
Yeah.
people. And then the last thing I'd say is like you got to stay level headed. You can't get too high, you can't get too low, you can't get attached to one process or another. um, because you may think you have a shoe in here, you've gotten every question right, everyone likes you on the team, and you get rejected. Or you might have talked to 10 people on one team and you don't even get a first round, and then another place you maybe talk to one guy and like you're in the super day. So it's like you got to just understand that like so much of this is out of your control, but then just get really focused on controlling what you can control, and just let it play out. And so like kind of judge yourself based on like, am I doing day in and day out what I can control? As long as you're doing that, you kind of have to have that detachment, and just let it play out and just be methodical about it. So I'd say that's the one thing, like, from a mental framework, when you're in those like 3 crazy months in your sophomore year, you got to really take that approach,
Yeah.
and not get too high, not too low.
For sure. That's really good advice, actually, because I find that a lot of students get really emotional about the process. And I'm not saying that's like, oh, why would they do that or whatever. Like, it's very understandable that people get emotional about it because
Yeah.
it can be a very emotional process. And in a way, I think a lot of students who are going for banking are also the type A, high achieving go getters who have been doing very well their entire lives. They've been good students. They were valedictorian in high school. Now they go to, college and they're getting good grades there. And just they've almost always been able to get whatever they wanted. Not like just walk into it, but obviously they had to work for it. But I think, even for myself too, like up until college, uh, I kind of had this idea that anything I want to achieve, like as long as I work hard enough, I'll be able to get there. And like in a way that, I'm not saying that's wrong, but like um, it sounds very logical when you say that. But also when you look at the acceptance rate at some of these investment banks, it's like, okay, if JP Morgan had 4,000 interns in 2024 out of 495,000 applicants, or if Goldman Sachs had 2,700 interns out of 315,000 applicants, it's like 0.8 or 0.9% respectively. You're not telling me that 99.1% or 99.2% of the applicants who apply to these firms just didn't try hard enough and that's why they didn't get in, right? Like, yes, some
Right.
subset of those people for sure didn't try hard enough, and some of them probably weren't even qualified in the first place. But there's also a lot of people that I've seen time and time again who work extremely hard through recruiting, but they just didn't know how to go about it. And so a lot of their effort was, it's not for lack of trying, but it's just like wasted effort. Right. And so I think anyway, I digress a little bit, but my point is, to your point, rather than being really emotional about why things aren't working out, or why like sometimes people get offended when like bankers don't respond to their networking emails, and it's just like,
Yeah.
bro, they don't owe
Yeah.
you anything, and like don't be so entitled to think that they have to give you 30 minutes at a time or whatever. Like if anything, by talking to you, they're doing you a favor, right? But you can't get emotional about it. But to your point, like all you can do is control what's in your control, which is your effort, which is your how resilient you are, um,
Yeah.
which is like whether like where to go and ask for help and get help when you need help or when you're stuck on something, rather than just continue to bang your head against the wall and thinking, oh, if I just keep doing this over and over again, something will change. Like that's the definition of insanity, right? So anyway, I think that's really good advice. But on the other two parts that you talked about, which are the technicals and the networking, those are usually, I would say, the two parts of recruiting that most students struggle with the most, right? And so definitely agree with you on the technical side. Um, if you're able to like nail down your technicals, the foundational aspects of it, especially, which obviously, like you said, is the three financial statements, right? But like if you can truly understand the ins and outs of the three financial statements, the income statement, the cash flow statement, the balance sheet. I mean, there's a reason why at least when we teach technicals inside of our program, we teach the three statements first before we teach anything else, because I feel like a lot of people try to skip ahead and like, oh, let me learn how to do a DCF, or oh, let me learn what's an LBO, and they don't. You have to learn to crawl before you can walk, before you can run, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and a lot of these technical concepts also build on top of each other. Like if you don't understand the three statements, you can't possibly understand how to do valuation. And if you don't know what valuation is or how it works, you can't figure out the purchase price. And how can you understand M&A, or how can you understand accretion dilution? Because like price is like the number one driver for that, right? Or then, like if you don't understand M&A, like an LBO is really just like a more complicated version of an M&A because of its capital structure and things like that. And so that's why I say like there's an order of operations and these things kind of build on top of each other. And I just find that a lot of people kind of do things out of order. And so I think it's a really great point that you made in terms of like, hey, this is the thing that you need to learn first, right?
Right.
Um,
Right. Exactly.
I guess for a lot of people too, though, in my experience, like when they're learning the technicals, they'll just pick up like an interview guide and uh, try to memorize. Let's say it's the 400 questions guide. Try to memorize the answers to 400 questions. Like, did you ever try doing that? And like, do you know people that have done that? And also, like, what is the difference between trying to do things that way versus kind of how you went about it?
Yeah, I'm happy you asked me this question. I'll tell you this. A lot of my buddies I grew up with that are at target schools, their whole plan was I'm going to pick up a technical guide in December during break, and I'm just going to read the technical guides and go into the interview processes. Um, I didn't touch a technical guide till December, but I had done all my technical prep before that. So my whole thing, I went the complete opposite direction. I spent so much time from the middle of my freshman year, or even the beginning to middle of my freshman year, till November of my sophomore year, doing technical prep without looking at a guide once. And then I picked up the guides in November and December and started reading them top to bottom with the technical backbone that I already built. Now, what I will say is, I think that's the better approach. It obviously was able to work for me where I wasn't having to study technicals really during my interview processes. Now, I'll say there are some unique questions that these bankers are literally just pulling off the 400 guide that, like, even if you study technicals without looking at guides, you might not even know it, but it's not that hard. And you can understand the concepts because you did the fundamental prep. But like, there's little things like that, like, is enterprise value ever negative? Stuff like that, where it's like, it's kind of a weird random question, but they're always going to ask it because they're copying and pasting it off the guide before they get on the interview with you. So I'd say that's the one thing where it's like, okay, I might have should work the guide in a little bit earlier, like more October-ish. But I think the way I approached it was correct in terms of you study the fundamental technicals using the modules in Mastermind, and then you don't touch a guide till October the earliest. Because you want to have that fundamental understanding of the financial theory and the accounting theory down to a T, and then the guides are kind of just brushing up on the more advanced concepts that they're probably not even going to ask you anyway. I will say the 2-page cheat sheet you guys provided me was probably the biggest game changer. That's something I made a routine where, like, every morning when I'd wake up early, I'd read the 2-page cheat sheet like 1 or 2 times, and I did that for like 4 months. And so, like, by the time I got to those, like, the time I was doing the interviews, that cheat sheet was the only thing I would ever look at in terms of a technical front. And I had every equation on a T. And once you know the fundamentals, and then you start reading the cheat sheet, you can you're not just memorizing equations. You understand how the equations tie into the financial theory and the models that you've studied, and so it kind of all clicks and comes full circle. So I would do it like that. You spend a year just mastering the fundamentals in the modules. October-ish, you pick up a guide and you start reading the guide top to bottom to brush up on the more advanced concepts that, or the unique kind of curveball questions. And then you read the 2-page cheat sheet every single morning, starting in the fall all the way till you sign your offer. And so within that stage, I don't see anyone getting a technical wrong in these interviews, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I would say, yeah, of course you could always get a question or two here and there from the guides. What I've actually seen from all the students that we've coached collectively, which is over 1,800 students at this point, is that more and more so now, I find that interviewers will actually go out of their way to try and not ask you the questions that are exactly from the guides, because they also know that every single student out there, for the most part, is already memorizing these guides. And by asking you the exact questions that are in the guides, sometimes, like, it doesn't really give them the information they need, which is, how do you separate the people who truly know this stuff inside out like you do versus the people who are just regurgitating information that they memorize that they don't even truly understand, right? So I find that interviewers like to dress up the questions, ask you variations of it, use different numbers, because if all you're doing is memorizing the textbook answer, you're going to get tripped up and you're going to expose yourself very easily as soon as they change up something pretty small like that, right? And so I think that, yeah, like, we like using the guides as more of like a question bank, or like a test, like a question bank that you can test yourself with after you've already learned the underlying concepts, because then you're not memorizing it, you're like testing yourself. It's like, do I know how to answer this question? And then you can look at the answer to see if your answer is correct, and that gives you like a better gauge of where you at, and are you close to being ready, or maybe you are ready, right? And it helps you identify gaps where, if you don't know how to answer a certain question, then you know that maybe that's still a gap that you have in your knowledge, and you need to go back and restudy that part, right? So like, I do think that, I'm not saying like don't use the guides at all. I think obviously, like, a lot of these guys are great. There's a place for it, but it's a matter of like how you use it. If you're just using it to like memorize the word for word or whatever, that's not really going to be effective, right?
Exactly.
I guess on the networking front, which you talked about, like, striking that balance between quantity and quality, right? Like, some people just take full on like numbers game approach. They don't personalize anything. They just blast everyone. And then some people take the opposite approach, where they painstakingly personalize every single person they reach out to, and but then they're not doing enough volume. Sounds like you're talking about more of doing like a mix of both, and so it's kind of a fine line. But when you talk about like building that real relationship with these people to the point where they really, really want to help you, how exactly do you go about doing that? Or like, what do you think is the key to having that type of relationship? Because I know, like, on the surface, of course, everything you're saying makes sense. Yes, I should build, more in-depth relationships with these bankers. But I think the question that most people have is like, but I don't know how, right? So
Yeah.
how do you get people to engage with you on that level?
Yeah, so I think, one of the things I leverage, which again, some of this is just luck and like the way, or also me digging around and finding the people I need to know to be able to leverage. I happen to have a distant, I guess you could call it family member. Not really, though. It's like a unrelated second cousin who actually helps people land buy side jobs as a headhunter. And so it helped him if I could bring him really talented sell side bankers that he could help land if they were looking to make that jump.
Mm,
I also was able to build a lot of relationships networking with people, and it wasn't just some kid who's looking for help from them. It was a kid that can actually also help them, and so it was kind of like a win-win, right? So it's like they're networking with a kid who looks very qualified, who can talk in depth on these topics, who's very passionate, who's coming from a non-target, who had to go the extra mile. They know you can't really get in these processes unless you've gone the extra mile. But then he can also add value to me as a relationship where he actually helped my career. And so I think, introducing a lot of people to headhunters was like a win-win for me, where the headhunter was thrilled and happy that I was able to provide him with great potential clients. The banker was thrilled because it gave them opportunities to explore when they were looking to make changes. And then for me, I was building relationships with the headhunter, I was building relationships with the bankers, and everyone was winning. So I think that was one thing that really helped me build relationships down the road, right? Where it wasn't just transactional. Let me see if this kid's competent to get a first round interview. It's like, oh, this guy actually is willing to help me out too. This guy actually wants to pick my brain more in depth on my career, how I adjusted, what I'm looking to do. So I think that's another component, right? Where it wasn't just like, tell me about yourself, walk me through your resume, what do you know about our firm? And it was more of like building a relationship with a guy who's passionate about this industry and wants and understands the industry well, and is actually looking to help me out as well.
yeah.
So I think that was kind of one component that helped.
So in other words, figuring out what you can, in a way, like offer to other people as well. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Right, not coming to the table with like, I'm just here looking for you to help me. It's like, how can I help you? As you start to build those relationships, you can say, hey, I know a guy at so and so's firm. Like, I can intro you to him as well if you're talking to that firm, if you're looking at. So it's like, then you can start to help all of your connections out. And then obviously getting in front of them and getting coffees with them, just continues to build that rapport. I've met some great connections playing pickup basketball. Again, I live in Hoboken, right outside New York City, so it's easier, right, to have access to this stuff. But like that's an unconventional way where I met some really good connections who I still get coffees with. I still put them in touch with other people within, whether they're in the buy side or whether in the sell side or whatever it is, to help them continue their career. So it's like building relationships and kind of not just a hey, I'm a student reaching out that wants you to help me get an interview, and more of like we're building a friendship here and we can add value to each other. That's the best way to approach it. It's a different conversation. I'd also say the thing that's really important to note coming from a non-target is I also built a resume before I started networking that stood out to them when they looked at it, which inclined them to answer me and get on the phone with
Mm,
me, which is another thing. You have to have a resume, especially from a non-target, that's worth their time. And so the search fund internships are great. I did a bunch of those. The one that really stood out was when I got to work at a boutique investment bank, got to work on live deals, had that experience to talk on. That's really where it's like, okay, this kid has seen this front and
yeah.
center. He's been to in-person client meetings. He's worked a deal. This is a serious candidate that we want to have in our process. So I think it's like, but you need the search fund internships to get there. So I think but then you need to also do it all in a timely fashion. So when networking comes around, you have it all on your resume. Your resume is finalized. So it's like it's a lot, right? But I think you got to get there. So when September comes around, you have a bulletproof resume that when you're saying these emails out, you're actually starting to get traction.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. I know it's a lot, and I kind of went on a tangent, but like those are all really necessary steps that had the domino effect on each other.
No, absolutely. And I think the point on the resume is a really good one, which is I think a lot of people misunderstand why there's a need to have a good resume, like, or they think that, oh, if I have a good resume, then when I submit the resume, then that's what's going to get me selected for these interviews. It's like, no, like the reason why you need to have a good resume is just to improve your chances when you're networking so that people will actually give you the time of day because they get so many networking requests. And if like they have to be selective about who they give their time to. And if your resume looks like a piece of hot trash, there just is nothing personal, but they're not going to want to waste 30 minutes talking to someone that they think has no hope anyway. Right. And so that's just like to get you that conversation. And of course, from there, you still have to get them to like you, get them to hopefully refer you. And that's how you get the interview. Um, Coming from a non-target, if you don't network and you don't have those referrals and you're just submitting your resume, it doesn't matter how good your resume is. They have so many resumes being submitted and so many of them coming from people that are from target schools and whatnot. Like you're just not going to be able to stand out, right? There's not on like that piece of paper alone. So I think like understanding
Yep.
why it's important and why you're doing what you're doing, um, that also kind of goes a long way, right? But yeah, that's really helpful, man. Those are all that's all really great advice, I would say. I guess to kind of wrap this up because I know we're coming up on time here, but do you have any other? I know you've already given so many good pieces of advice, but do you have any final pieces of advice that you will want to share with people who are either currently still going through the process and haven't secured an offer yet, or maybe they're about to go through the process in the future? Could be something that you figured out on your own along the way, or it could be something that someone else told you that really made a big difference for you. Is there anything like that that you want to kind of pass on to other people?
Yeah, I would say, and I think the program does a good job of setting this up early on and kind of having this module before you get into the technicals and the behavioral stuff. It's like having the right mindset, and understanding what you're getting yourself into, especially from a non-target position, where it's like you have to really give this everything you have, for a long time. Like for me, it was over a year. It's like, I was a big basketball fan, right? I couldn't tell you like half the stuff I knew about the NBA now than I could have told you a year ago. You know what I mean? Like you just stop following things that like were part of your life. Like you know what I mean? You really have to go all in. And I think you have to have the mindset of like I'm going to do whatever it takes until it happens. Like I'm just not going to stop. So if I'm not successful till September of my junior year, then that's the case. But I'm not stopping. Like you just have to have that mindset. Like I'm not stopping until I sign an offer.
Yeah,
And I think that's the one thing where it's like you have to understand the time commitment for the long period of time and have the mindset of like I'm literally just not going to quit and I'm not going to stop until I sign a paper, or else you very well may not get it even if you deserve it. From a non-target standpoint, you really have to take that approach.
yeah. Basically, being willing to make sacrifices, uh, that not everyone's willing to make. Um, I think we have a video in a program called it entering a season of no, just like having to say no to things because you're locked in on like the one thing that really matters, right? And it's temporary. It's not you can't stay in a season of no forever, but at least for this period of time when it's crucial, um, this you're making recruiting your number one priority, which is honestly what it kind of has to be, given how competitive it is. And for a lot of people, they're like, well, I don't want to sacrifice this. I don't want to sacrifice watching the NBA or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, then fine. Like you don't have to, but also, like everyone says they want like an exceptional outcome. They want to get into a job that only has maybe a 1% acceptance rate at any given firm, or they want to make a salary that's 150 to 200K right out of college, which is 2 to 3 times higher than what your buddies are going to be making if they don't get in. It's like, yeah, of course everyone wants that, but not everyone's willing to do what it takes to get there, right? And something that someone said recently that I heard, which I really like, is, and I've already heard this in different variations before, but the saying goes, everything you want is on the other side of hard. Meaning,
Yeah.
if it was easy. Like if it was easy, like you already have it, you know? Or like if you already have it, then you wouldn't even want it because that's just the status quo, right? But everything that you want and you don't have yet, usually, if it's something good, that means a lot of other people also want it, and that means it's going to be competitive, and it's going to take hard work to get there. And I just see
Right.
so many people who are like, "Yeah, I want that, but can I get that without having to do the hard stuff?" And it's like, no, if like making that kind of money was easy, then everyone would be a freaking millionaire. And of course, everyone is not a millionaire, right? So, you
Yeah.
want exceptional outcomes, you have to be willing to do exceptional things or be an exceptional person, which means you're willing to do things that normal people aren't willing to do. You're willing to cut out some of your hobbies temporarily. You're willing to like maybe not go and get that drink at the bar with your buddies, every Friday. It's just like, and it
Yeah.
sucks in the moment, but after you get whatever it is that your goal is, like it all becomes more than worth it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. One caveat I would say that I was just thinking about while we were talking about this, in terms of like sacrifices, right? It's like we kind of touched on this earlier, like non-target, you're paying, you might be paying lower for school, but you're gonna have to put all this work in terms of recruiting, whereas a target may have to put a lot less work in recruiting, but they had to sacrifice a lot, right, growing up, right, to get into that
Yeah.
school. I sacrificed a lot growing up because I was playing basketball and I had the goal of playing in college, right? But the work ethic that I built from that translated to the work ethic I put into this program.
Mm,
And so like I had that work ethic from basketball that I just geared towards recruiting. A lot of target school kids, they have a work ethic that they put into academics in high school that got them into Harvard or Stern. And a lot of them can really channel that into studying for technicals, studying for behaviorals, and converting to a job. I think if you're a non-target kid, if you grew up playing a sport or you had some avenue where you were able to build that work ethic muscle before you start recruiting, that's crucial, right? And so I think like you're right, like the kids that don't understand the sacrifice thing, it's like, yeah, you'd hope that when they get to this program, they've already had something they were pursuing that was really hard to break into, that they can build that muscle, because that's the muscle that's going to drive you through, right? Like you can talk all you want about it, you can talk to as many people as possible, but if you don't have that consistency, that discipline, the accountability, like it's just not going to happen. And you need to do it consistently for over 12 months,
yeah. Work ethic is the bare minimum requirement. without it
Yeah, yeah, it's
without it
just
you got nothing, right? There's nothing to talk about. So if you've
right.
been able to develop your work ethic from other things, doesn't necessarily have to be academics, but if you have your work ethic from sports, or I have someone say like they develop really good work ethic from playing instruments competitively and they were in the orchestra, like it could be whatever, and then just kind of
Right.
channeling that to whatever your current goals are, in this case recruiting, then yeah, that can absolutely work, right? So I think you make a really good point.
Yeah.
um, cool. So look guys, for those of you who for this that this resonates with, maybe you come from a non-target school yourself, maybe you're kind of like an underdog, or you're coming from a relatively disadvantaged position relative to, say, these kids that go to a target schools and have all these resources and have a large alumni network and all these things that you don't have. But also you understand that you know there's a way to level the playing field, if you just get yourself the right guidance, take this extra elective, so to speak, and you also have the work ethic that's necessary to put in the work. Honestly, if you combine the work ethic that you have with the proper guidance that you need, then getting into investment banking is, it's not rocket science. Like, you don't need to be a genius to do it, right?
Yeah,
You
it's
don't need
true.
to be a 4.0 student from Harvard to get into investment banking. But you do need to have both. You do need to have work ethic. Also, work ethic alone is not enough. You need to have work ethic, and you need to have like the right information and the right game plan and the right strategies and knowing the right order of operations with which to do things in. All things that we talked about today, right? And so, if that's you and you're looking for that kind of help, I want to encourage you to reach out to us, and you can book a call with our team. You can go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street's abbreviated to ST, so it's wallstmastermind.com/apply. And our team will get on with you. We'll talk about your situation. What's your current profile? What kind of banks are you trying to get into? Uh, what do you feel like you need help with? What are you struggling with? all of those things, and then based on that, we'll kind of walk you through just a game plan of what we think will make the most sense for you, what needs to be done to get from where you are today to where you're trying to go. And if that sounds good to you and you want us to help you with that, we're more than happy to do it. If you want to just take the information we give you and go and run with it on your own, you're absolutely welcome to do that as well. Right? Either way, we're just here to help you make it a little bit easier. And so, yeah, I encourage you guys to book that call. But otherwise, Lewis, I want to thank you again for taking the time to come on here and share your experience with us today. And super excited for you about the offer that you got, and looking forward to seeing what you accomplish at BNP next summer and really beyond. So, please, keep us posted and don't be a stranger.
Thank you, Sam. Really appreciate it. Happy to do this interview. It was a great experience in the program.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll be back with more of these for you guys in the near future. And until next time, all right, cheers.